Jagannatha Swami Nayana Bhattagami Nayana Bhattagami Baba Tume Nayana Bhattagami Baba Nitai Goranga Jaya Nitai Goranga Nitai Goranga Jaya Nitai Goranga Nitai Goranga Jaya Gaura Hare Jaya Sachinandana Gaura Hare Patita Pavana Gaura Hare Nitta 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 Nittai Goranga Nitta 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 Nittai Goranga Nittai Goranga Jaya Gaura Hare Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada ISKCON BBT founder Acharya is Divine Grace Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parinacharya Stuttara Shutta Shishima Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananda Caitanya Dasa Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannathpuri Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Transcendental Book and Prasadam Distribution Ki Jai. Transcendental Book and Prasadam Distribution Marathon 2022 Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the Guru and the Lord. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can obtain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean without suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mind. Attachment to his lotus feet is the profession that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic preemanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. May your fame be spread all over the world. We take shelter to your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada. The Pavana Srila Prabhupada keys. No more. Okay, du stehst sehr auf der Ananda. Ja? Du stehst auf der Ananda. Really?
No.
I don't know which verse, do you know?
No.
We found out where you went. She emerged from this ocean of confusion.
Which verse?
Now shall I? Ja, sag det för mig.
Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad, Paramhamsa Viradhikacharya Shotashot Shri Srimati Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON GBC Bibri Foundation Srila Prabhupada Ki, Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki, Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadramai Ki, New Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Distribution Ki, Nittai Gaur Premanandi. Oh glories to some devotees. Oh glories to some devotees. Glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to Lord Sweet Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. Oh glories to Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura
Granth Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 22. The chapter is entitled The Process of Devotional Service, and it is text number 26. Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna
Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje Chari Varnashrami Yadi Krishna Nahi Bhaje Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje Swakarma Karite Se Raurave Padi Maje
Charivarnashrami yadi Krishna nahi bhaje. Charivarna ashrami. Followers of the four social and spiritual orders of life.
Followers of the four social and spiritual orders of life.
Yadi, if Krishna, Lord Krishna, Nahi, not, Bhaje, serve, Swakarma karite, performing his duty in life. Say, that person, Raurave, in a hellish condition, body, falling down, Maje, becomes immersed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki. The followers of the Varnashram institution accept the regulative principles of the four social orders, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and four spiritual orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. However, if one carries out the regulative principles of these orders, but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into a hellish condition of life, of material life. Please repeat. The followers of the Varnashram institution accept the regulative principles of the four social orders, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra, and four spiritual orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. However, if one carries out the regulative principles of these orders, but does not render transcendental service to Krishna, he falls into a hellish condition of material life. Purport. One may be a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya or Shudra, or one may perfectly follow the spiritual principles of Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas. But ultimately, one falls down into a hellish condition unless one becomes a devotee. Without developing one's dormant Krishna consciousness, one cannot be factually elevated. The regulative principles of Varnashram Dharma in themselves are insufficient for attainment of the highest perfection. This is confirmed in the following two quotations from Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5, 2-3. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Kurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajat Raghunatham Vitvam Samtasi Jivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Manchakalpatarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So Varnashram is a big topic, and I will speak briefly on some points in relation to Varnashram, and then I think a broader topic which this verse is really aiming towards, and what is the purpose of the verse, the purpose of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. So Varnashram is it's an important topic. Srila Prabhupada said, of course, we know that 50% of my work is done. At the end, in his final months, he said 50% of my work is done, but 50% is remaining. And the remaining 50% is, he said, Varnashram, to establish Varnashram in ISKCON. It's not an easy task. And therefore I think a lot of devotees shun it or put it aside, make it irrelevant, say that it's not realistic in today's world, in the 21st century. But Prabhupada wanted it. Many people, you know, when, what was his name? When Bon Maharaj was preaching in the 1930s, he came to the West and he met this Lord. What was his name? He met this Lord, and and when he spoke about the 4 regulative principles, he said, this is impossible. He said, it's impossible. But you know, he said, you can never get people here to follow these 4 regulative principles. But there are thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of devotees who are doing that in our ISKCON movement. So where there is a will, there is a way. So there are 2 types of Varnashram. There's the Daivi Varnashram system, which is what we follow. And this is really what is being spoken about here, that the purpose of the Varnashram system, of course, the purpose is to give a stable platform, an organized system, so that people, devotees, can live a regulated life and therefore have a stable position upon which to practice Krishna consciousness. So it's there to give structure. You are a brahmachari, a grahastha, a vanaprastha, a sannyasi. There are certain rules and regulations, rights and responsibilities which come with these ashramas. And then there are the Shudra, Vaishya, Kshatriya and Brahmana. Again, there are certain rights and responsibilities. It gives a certain structure, a certain mold, which we can then live according to. And it helps us to live a stable, regulated life. That's the purpose. And why do we want to live a regulated, structured life? Because that is supportive. It's a mode of goodness life, which is supportive to the practice and the execution of Krishna consciousness, which is why it's called Daivi Varnashram. It is a godly social structure. The purpose is to attain love of God, love of Krishna. And then there is the Asura Varnashram system, which is what we see in many places. Even today in India is practiced in many places, which is casteism. It's just a caste system. So the Brahmanas have power, have control. It's based on the hereditary system. If you're born in a Brahmana family, then you're automatically a Brahmana. If you're born in a Shudra family, then you're a Shudra. And the Brahmanas have power, and they control and often manipulate those under them. So this is the Asura, or the demonic Varnashram system. As we expect, things become degraded over time. In Kali Yuga, this is expected. But this isn't Krishna's intention. Krishna's intention, he says, Chatur Varnyam Maya Shishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasha. The bhag, it's been separated, it's been into parts based on guna and karma, one's qualities and one's activities. One's activities and one's qualities. According to that, the varna and ashram is determined. So Srila Prabhupada tells a story of Satyakam Jabala. There's a Jabala Upanishad, and the story is described there. So there was this young man called Satyakam Jabala. Does anyone know this story? You've heard this? No? So he wanted to be taught by Gautama Muni. But Gautama Muni only accepted Brahmanas in his school. So Satyakam Jabala went to Gautama Muni and said, "Can you teach me? Can I be a member of your school?" He said, "We only accept Brahmanas." He said, "Which caste are you?" And he said, "I'm not sure, I'll ask my mother." So he went back to ask his mother, what was my father? Which caste is my father? Was he a Brahmana? Was he a Kshatriya? Was he a Shudra? Was he a Vaishya? And the mother said, I don't know. So in Vedic culture, if the mother doesn't know the father of her child, that's a problem. Yeah, because it shows that she had many connections with many men at the time. And this is very much frowned upon in Vedic culture. In today's culture, it's normal culture. So then what did Satyakam Jabala do? In this kind of environment, it's a very embarrassing situation. What did he do? He went and told Gautama Muni and said, my mother doesn't know. Gautama Muni said, you're accepted. Everyone was surprised. Doesn't know who his father is, but Gautama Muni's accepted him. How has he accepted him? On what basis? Why? How? Because he's truthful. This is a quality of a Brahmana. He's a Brahmana. Who knows who his mother's degraded, his father's degraded, but he's a Brahmana of in quality, because he tells the truth. So the Varnashram system is based on quality. Yeah, people's qualities. And that requires someone qualified to actually assess what is someone's quality. What is their guna and karma? This story also reminds me of Karna. Karna was, of course, born to Kunti before marriage via the sun god. And Kunti, due to the embarrassment of having a child before marriage, she cast Karna away in the Yamuna, or the Ganga, in a basket. And he floated down the river, and a chariot driver, Adirat was his name, he found him. And they adopted him, they took care of him. So he was known as Sudputra, the son of a chariot driver, a Shudra. On his 16th birthday, Adirat gave him a present. He gave him a brand new chariot with a nice, big, beautiful, big white horse. And he's very happy to give his son a new chariot to drive. And he said, you can continue on in our legacy of being a chariot driver. And Karna looked down. He was very embarrassed. And he said, somehow, I have to tell you, I haven't been able to tell you so far in my life, but I have to tell you this, that I'm just not attracted to the reins of the horse. I have no inclination towards riding this chariot. Rather, I want to be the warrior who the chariot driver's driving. I want to have a bow and arrow. I want to fight. This is my innate desire. And I'm telling you now, I'm so sorry that I just don't want to continue on in that legacy. So Adirat and his wife, they came to Karna and they said, we have something to tell you. That actually, we are just your foster parents. We're not your real parents. We found you in the river. So of course this was earth-shattering for Karna. At the same time, it began to make sense. He just didn't have an inclination towards doing what his father, did. So he went to Hastinapur in order to follow his heart's desire to become a warrior, and secondly, in order to find out who his real parents were. So he approached Dronacharya and wanting to be taught in Dhanurved, in archery. But Dronacharya was only accepting Kshatriyas. And this Karna was a Sudputra, he was a Shudra. So he said, no, I'm sorry, I cannot accept you in my school. So Karna was very disappointed. So then he approached Parshuram. And Karna thought to himself, I will not be disappointed again. I won't be turned away again. So Parshuram was only accepting Brahmanas in his school. Because Parshuram He was the enemy of the Kshatriyas. He had banished the world of the Kshatriyas 21 times, we hear in the Bhagavatam. So he never came close. He didn't like Kshatriyas. So then Karna went dressed up as a Brahmana. And he approached Parshuram and he begged him, please give me teaching. Please teach me the art of warfare. Teach me Dhanurved. And he claimed to be a Brahmana. So then Parshuram taught him everything. He taught him all of the mantras to summon the most powerful weapons, like the Brahmastra, for example. Subtle science, this is subtle warfare. With mantras, weapons are summoned. So, like that, Parshuram taught him everything and made him the best archer in the world. But then one day Parshuram was resting on Karna's thigh. He was resting after lunch. Took a nap. And then a scorpion came. A scorpion came and started to bite Karna. Started to bite him very hard. But Karna's guru was resting on his lap. So what do? Do you disturb the guru? Or do you endure the pain? Karna endured the pain. And blood started, ooze, sort of just, not dripping, bursting out of his thigh, And he's just covered in blood. And he just stood there, strong, solid, unmoving, unflinching, because his guru was resting. And then eventually when his guru woke up from his slumber, he saw Karna's thigh was covered in blood. And he saw Karna and he said, "You liar, you cheat. You're not a Brahmana, you're a Kshatriya." Because a Brahmana can never endure such pain. This is just not the quality of a Brahmana. He's not able to. A Kshatriya can endure that kind of pain. So he said, this is not your quality. You're not a Brahmana. You claimed to me that you were a Brahmana. Today you've been found out you are nothing but a Kshatriya. And I despise Kshatriyas. And adding that bit, I don't think he said that necessarily, that he despised Kshatriyas. But I know. Anyway, he said Kshatriyas were so disqualified. So he banished the world of Kshatriyas 21 times. So he was the enemy of the Kshatriyas. He's known like that. So he cursed Karna. He said, the moment when this vidya, this knowledge that I've given you, that I've imparted upon you, thinking you're a Brahmana, the moment this knowledge is most useful to you, at that point, it won't come. You'll be bereft of this knowledge. You won't be able to utilize it. And that's actually the means by which Krishna helped Arjuna to defeat Karna in the Mahabharata war. But we won't go into that right now. So, quality. The ashramas and the varnas are based on quality. And we have to understand ourselves, so we distribute this book. On the streets, Schönheit des Selbst. Sorry for my German. But it's the beauty of the self. And so when we look at the title, one thing I say to people is that we don't get taught at school to really understand ourselves, to really know who we are. But the Vedic culture breeds an environment of self-understanding. We have to understand who we are, because most of the time people go into jobs and situations, relationships and so on, without really knowing who they are. Without really knowing what their nature is, what their quality is, what their real likes and dislikes are, and therefore they live a very confused life and a very dissatisfied life. Because if you don't know who you are, then how can you really make fundamental decisions in your life? And people connect with that. No one at school, at least I don't know whether the Swiss education system is different, but no one actually discussed at school who we are, what our qualities are. The Western education system, which is prevalent all across the world, is just like a a factory. You just have a certain set of information which you have to stuff into people's, or at least try to stuff into people's heads, and they have to regurgitate it at the end of the year in an exam, or every few days, as Ajay Krishna is going through. Every week he said he has an exam right now. So, it's just a conveyor belt system. The Vedic education system is very personalized. It's very focused on the individual, and it's according to the individual's nature, their guna and their karma. So this is very natural. Divisions in society are very natural. Guna, karma, vibhagasha, vibhag, divisions. Even now in today's society, we have blue-collar workers and white-collar workers and so on. There are natural divisions. You have people working in the, not so many people in the primary sectors, but people working in industry, secondary sector. Then we have people working in goods in service sector, tertiary sector. So there are naturally divisions in our society which people are very comfortable with. So similarly, Krishna designed a system whereby people have a certain mold which they can fit into, and thereby live. So this is a system. It's not cast by birth, but it's classed by worth. So it's not cast by cast by birth. So it's not based on your birth, but it's classed by worth. So you have a certain mold according to your nature, according to your worth, according to your quality. Is it unfair to put the head on top of the legs? No, it's natural. This is how things work the best. In the same way, is it unfair to put the Brahmanas on top of the Shudras and the Vaishyas and the Kshatriyas? No, because this is how society can be organized best, as long as everyone follows their values and their responsibilities properly, as they should. The problem is that people haven't, and this is why we have the convoluted, manipulated caste system in India and in other places that we do. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asks Ramananda Rai, however, please tell me the ultimate goal of life, Ramananda Rai's first answer is Varnashram. You have to follow the Varnashram system. Daivi Varnashram system, of course. And what is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's response? Eho bhaya, aage kaho aar. This is external. Say something more. Say something deeper. So then like that, this is the beginning of the conversation. Like that, Ramananda Rai goes deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in one sense, rejects the Varnashram system, because he's saying that it's not the essence, it's not the goal, it's not the be-all and end-all. It is a supportive material structure for the practice of Krishna consciousness. So similar to this verse that we've just read today, in the Bhagavatam 1-8, Dharma svanusita pumsam vishvaksena kathasviya notpadayad yadiratim shama eva hi kevalam. He said, Sutta Goswami is saying that if one follows the dharma, the occupational duties, the occupational duties a man performs, if they do not provoke attraction towards the topics of Krishna, Vishvaksena Katha, if one is not naturally attracted to Krishna through the occupational duties one performs, such as following Varnashram, then Bhagavatam says it's a useless waste of time. So the point is that everything we do, we have to work out a way of living in this world that everything we do has to be connected to Krishna, and it has to help and support us to become attracted to the topics of Krishna. So somehow we have to work out a way. Now those devotees who are engaged in temple service full-time are very, very fortunate, Because in that way, everything can be directly connected to Krishna conscious activity. It's a great fortune. Because when you're living and working outside, you're sitting in an office for 9 hours, 10 hours a day in front of a computer screen, doing mundane, boring, administrative work, and so many other things. Before I became a brahmachari, I was a banker. I was sitting on in a trading floor with 250 people, with 6 computer screens in front of me and numbers going up and down, information overload. I was sitting there like a zombie for 12 hours a day, sometimes 13, 14 or 15. And I have to work out how to make money, and as much money as possible for people to get richer, and they give me a tiny fraction. Very difficult to connect it to Krishna. Yes, you can give the fruits of the work to Krishna. Yes, you can maintain yourself and maintain a family. But these things are relatively indirect. Still good, still wonderful, laudable. And this is what we will have to do. We have to find a way of connecting whatever we do to Krishna, and somehow helping these, using these things to provoke attraction towards Krishna. Because that's the ultimate goal of life. That's ultimately what everything is about. Like Srila Prabhupada was saying this morning, 4th of December 1974, I forget the place, but in the calendar we read this morning, Srila Prabhupada was saying that Krishna is waiting. He's in the Archa Vigraha. He's in the deity form. He's there. Actually, this is him. One thing is to say he's a the deity is a representation of Krishna. Another thing is to say that he's non-different to Krishna. The deity form is non-different to Krishna. Another thing is to say that this is Krishna. So Krishna is right there, and he wants to speak to us. But Srila Prabhupada was just saying that we have to qualify ourselves. We have to qualify ourselves so that so that we can actually communicate with Krishna, so that we can speak to Krishna. We're reading from Nectar of Devotion, just a little quote. It's from chapter 26. And it was talking about one gopi and how she was... Actually, the next one was speaking about how one gopi was so distracted when she heard Krishna's ankle bells. So how do we develop this kind of absorption and immersion in Krishna consciousness? This is what our Vedic literatures, this is what our Goswamis, this is what Srila Prabhupada is giving us. This is why Srila Prabhupada gave us a Nectar of Devotion, to really understand the various stages of devotion and to actively aspire for them. Because too often devotees say, oh, that's too much for me, Prabhu. That's too high, that's too far. Shishi Jagnapalde Subhadramai ki, Shishi Gaurnitai ki. We have to practice sadhana bhakti in such a way that, and we have to mold our lives in such a way that we actually, that we can progressively develop this kind of attraction, Vishwaksena Katha. Otherwise, Bhagavatam is strong. Otherwise, everything we're doing is a useless waste of time. So I think it's a very important consideration. It's something that we have to all think about doing. And it doesn't mean that if you're living in the temple, then everything's automatic and it just happens. You know, there is a degree of that. If you're following the rules properly, then you naturally come to the morning program. You naturally chant with the Vaishnavas. You naturally do kirtan. You naturally hear Bhagavatam. And so a part of that is normal, but you have to apply yourself to it. You have to really give yourself to it. And in that way, things actually work. If you don't really apply yourself and you just go through the motions, then just like anything, it doesn't really have traction. It doesn't really work. So we have to really take on and absorb Krishna consciousness. We have to really accept it into our hearts. We have to be very conscious about what we're hearing about what we're reading, about what we're doing, and make sure we are actively looking to connect these things to Krishna. When we're reading, how much do you remember of what you've read? If you read for an hour, at the end leave 5 minutes and think, what have I actually read? How much do I remember? How much have I taken in? How much of what I've read can I apply in my life day to day? What do I change through this? Because Krishna consciousness has to be, it's the art of transformation. There's that book. There's a little book called The Art of Transformation. I think it's by Satchidananda Swami. No? Kannamakana Swami? Anyways, it's a small book. Small book called The Art of Transformation. Krishna consciousness is meant to transform us. They say that at the point of initiation, the initiation is a process by which, Hari Bhaktivilas says, initiation is a process by which bell metal turns into gold. Something ordinary turns into something very shining, beautiful and valuable. How much are we allowing that transformative process to take place? It requires a certain degree of absorption. It requires consciousness. We have to be conscious about every step. Conscious about everything that we're doing. Why am I doing this? What is my purpose? Conscious about every interaction that we have with a devotee. Who is this person? What is my relationship with them? How should I engage and interact with them according to Vaishnava etiquette? How should I, can I help this person? If they're younger, prema maitri kripopeksha. Bhagavatam says, Ishwarita dineshu balisheshu tushatucha. Prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhyama. The advancement of a devotee in the Bhagavatam is very interesting. The way it's described is based on how they interact with different types of people. The verse before that is talking about a Kanishta Adhikari. Achayame vaharaye pujanya shradaye hate natad bhakteshu chanyeshu sab bhakta prakrita smrita. It describes a devotee who's doing archan, who's doing worship. He's doing deity worship. That means he's twice initiated. He's a Brahmana. In Vedic culture, Brahmanas worship the deities only. So, pujanya shradaye hate, with great faith, he's doing puja, he's doing worship. But natad bhakteshu chanyeshu, he doesn't have great regard for the devotees. He doesn't have good interactions with the devotees. He's dismissive of the Vaishnavas. For him, it's just about me and Krishna. This, Bhagavatam says, is a Kanishta mentality. It's just me and Krishna. Forget about everyone else. No. Second verse, Madhyamadikari is someone who Ishwarita Dadhineshu. So he has prema, he's developing prema for Ishwara, for Krishna. And then with the devotees he has maitri, he has friendship. When you talk about friendship, then it's dadati pratigranati. Rupa Goswami explains how devotees interact, how they serve one another. And then with the innocent, he has kripa. Yes, so what do? We preach. And those who are innocent, those who are open, who want to know, we give them Krishna consciousness. And upeksha, for those who are inimical, we have upeksha, we keep a distance from those who are inimical. So a Madhyamadikari, according to the Bhagavatam, is someone who knows how to interact with different types of people. He knows how to interact with someone who's younger. He knows how to interact with someone who's equal. And he knows how to interact with someone who's senior. And this is a sign of conscious living. So like that, in every aspect of our life, we have to be very conscious about what we're doing and about what we're not doing. When we're chanting Hare Krishna, what am I doing? What is this process? I'm communicating with Krishna. I'm qualifying myself, like Prabhupada was saying, to speak with Krishna. So that one day I can actually hear from Krishna. When I'm reading Bhagavatam, what am I doing? I'm in communion. Bhagavatam is non-different to Krishna. So I'm in communion with Krishna. I'm in communion with Srila Prabhupada. So like that, we have to live a conscious life. And in this way, taste comes. When we do things, this process works. This process is very potent. The holy name is non-different to Krishna. Bhagavatam CC is non-different to Krishna. These things become uncovered and revealed as we practice Krishna consciousness in a way that, with endeavor, with a life which is molded to be conducive to our Krishna consciousness, and with real absorption and focus. I'll stop there. It's almost 8:30. Are there any comments, questions, corrections? Yes, Manaji.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. You said that it's a great fortune to live in the temple. So
I guess I was making that point because mainly devotees here, or quite a few devotees, are living in the temple. But
yeah. Yeah. So, but is there? I have two questions actually. One is there a difference between somebody who lives in the temple and somebody who goes outside to preach, or is that better to go outside to preach? Or is it...
when you say outside to preach, you mean, how do you mean?
A Sankirtan devotee.
So, I guess there are some Grahastha devotees who do Sankirtan, and there are some Brahmachari devotees who do Sankirtan, but Sankirtan is Sankirtan. Whether you're living in the temple or not, that doesn't make so much difference. If you do Sankirtan, then... can I clarify? Maybe I don't understand your question.
Yeah, I was just exchanging with one devotee friend, and we were saying that in the 90s it was like, you know, those who are living in the temple, they were not so well seen as like those who are going outside to preach.
Oh, meaning those who stay in the temple and do temple services versus those who go out to preach. Everything we do is preaching. Deity worship is preaching. No? People come, someone new comes to the temple. You know, when someone goes out, distributes books, they do Harinam, Prasadam distribution, whatever it may be. Hopefully through that, people come to the temple. They come to the Sunday program, they visit the temple. We have schools which come quite regularly. And what do they come? They come and they see the temple. So if our temple is a mess, a tip all over the place, because everyone's running out and doing Sankirtan and distributing books, and this temple is all upside down, then people that we bring in, they'll come and just see, well, this is a crazy place. It's a wacky house. So everything, cleaning the floor, deity worship, management, everything in the Krishna consciousness movement is a limb of preaching, because our whole movement, our whole drive, everything should be aimed at and then the consciousness of preaching. But there's two types of preaching. There's, you know, they say first achar and then prachar. So there's preaching to myself and preaching to others. So alongside that, and maybe, who am I to say, but maybe in the 90s the balance was maybe a little out from what I hear, that we also need to make sure that we work on ourselves, that we're preaching to ourselves. And so having the conducive environment of the temple, to have a good morning program, time to read and study and absorb Shastra, as well as go out and preach, I think is a balanced approach, is a progressive approach, is a long-term approach, whereby devotees can represent the books, learn how to really represent Krishna consciousness, become Bhagavatam. They say there's a book Bhagavad and the person Bhagavad. We want to distribute the book Bhagavad by people who are Bhagavads, who represent Bhagavatam. So that requires some work also. That requires also being in the temple. That requires being with the devotees and having time to absorb, read, study, chant nicely, focus, and develop ourselves to become Vaishnavas, real Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas who give their lives to Prabhupada, to Gauranitai, to Jagannath for life, and deeply absorb Krishna consciousness and absorb that identity that I'm a Vaishnava and live as a Vaishnava, not because you're told to, not because you have to, not because someone's going to get on your back if you don't, but because this is life. This is me. This is everything. There's nothing else. This is my world. And that requires some depth. So everything is preaching. I do feel that everyone should go out and preach also, physically. Pujari should preach, meaning go out and do Harinam and books. Those who clean, those who manage, everyone, because we are a preaching mission. And there is a special freshness and a special energy that comes from going out. And I was telling Ajay Krishna yesterday that, sort of the best person I met yesterday was after half an hour of no, 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 no. And then suddenly I met this one lady, and she said, I said, what do you do? She said she's a social worker, she used to be a nurse. So I gave her an SSR, Science of Self-Realization. And I said, this book is really good because it helps to reflect on ourselves. And as social workers, you can really relate to that, because you have to reflect on yourself and you have to help people to reflect on themselves as well, to really come out of their problems. So she was connecting with that idea. And then I asked her, do you like food? So I gave her a little cookbook, and she said, I love Indian food. Is this Ayurvedic? So I gave her a little cookbook, Higher Taste. So then I showed her the Adiraj cookbook, and it says, how does it go? What's the title? Vedish Koknusht. Yeah? And so I said, this. She said, wow, I love Indian food. So she really loved this book. And then she told me that I've been to India, so I had the food there and it was amazing. So I said, you've been to India? I said, what did you do in India? She said she spent 2 months in an ashram in India. This is a Swiss lady, I said, which ashram? This was the last lady of the day, the last person of the day. It was 6:30. And she said, Ananda Amma, the one who hugs people and gives them bliss. So she spent 2 months in an ashram there near Indore, Madhya Pradesh. So then I said, I have to give you the Bhagavad Gita. So then, of course, it was Gita Jayanti. So I gave her a Bhagavad Gita as well, and told her about it. And she said, wow, this book, Bhagavad Gita, is on my list of books to buy. Yeah, this was the last person of the day. This was on my list of books to buy. So she been to India, loves Indian food, social worker, and the Bhagavad Gita was on her list of books to buy. Who arranged that? Who sent that person? It's not coincidence. It's magic. This is Krishna. This is Prabhupada. You cannot experience that mercy anywhere else but when you go out to preach. So there's something very special about going out to preach Krishna consciousness, to put yourself on the line, to get smashed, saying no, people saying no, 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 get out of my way, go get a job, go to hell. One guy said to me, you're the third guy to stop me today, because there were 3 of us in Lucerne yesterday. You're the third guy today, leave me alone. And then you feel, what do you feel when someone says no, 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 when you get that kind of response? You feel like a beggar. We're not begging, we're giving. But you feel Krishna.